Hi, I'm Reagan Tunstall. In this video, we're going to take a look at a guided math lesson from start to finish. Now, chances are you're already rocking out those math lessons. This was going to give you a picture of what it looks like in someone's classroom. We're going to talk about smoothly incorporating all four components of guided math in one cohesive lesson, maximizing your time and transitions, and building a community of mathematical thinkers. Let's get started. It's really all about balance. It's the balance of procedural understanding, which is that workbook, how-to type of math, and conceptual understanding, really truly understanding how the numbers work together, their relationship, how they are changing, and why they change. All right, so if you think of your math block like a circle, think of it as a pie, we're going to begin with a warm-up, and this is going to take 10% of our time. So let's imagine that you have 60 to 75 minutes for math. You're going to use anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes on a math warm-up, and we're going to get into that in just a sec. Following your math warm-up, we're going to move into our whole group mini lesson. Rather than traditionally teaching a long math lesson that incorporates guided practice, independent practice, and all of those different components, we're now going to power pack it into a short 15 to 20 minute mini lesson. And I'm going to show this to you also. This way we can utilize the majority of our math block in those small groups. Finally, we're going to wrap it up with a reflection using about 10% of that math block pie. All right, so let's get started. For our math warm-up, the purpose of it is really to allow us to spiral review previously taught standards. Just like we become less sharp on things that happened as time goes on, our students begin to get fuzzy on those math concepts as well. And we really need to keep bringing them back and discussing them in short, fun, little engaging ways. Let's jump into the classroom. This is Mrs. Grant. She is teaching her math warm-up today, and she's playing the game Mystery Number. If you're not familiar with this game, the teacher or a chosen student will come up and think of a mystery number, then write it in a discrete spot, maybe behind the chart or behind the whiteboard. Students raise their hands and guess the numbers that they think that it might be, and the teacher will say greater than or less than until the students finally zero in on the correct number. This is a great game to teach number sense, greater than and less than, but you can add another layer of learning to it by keeping track of how many guesses it takes to find the missing number. Let's say the class finds the missing number in 8 guesses, so the teacher marks down an 8. Their goal now is to guess the mystery number in less than 8 tries. What this does is it adds a layer of strategy. So rather than saying 120 or 1 for a guess, which by the way first graders love to do, you're going to find that your students want to guess more in the midway range. So they might say 50, because when the student says greater than or less than, it eliminates half of the game board, which makes them find it a lot easier to zero in on the correct number. So after about 5 minutes of this game, then you're going to stop and jump right in to your whole group math mini lesson. Now we're ready to state our objective in our kid-friendly terms to start our lesson, and this is going to take us about 1 minute. So the teacher's going to state the objective, and if there's any kind of anchor chart or clue cards or any sort of reinforcing materials, then that's going to get introduced as well. From there, the teacher's going to move into group participation. She's going to introduce the strategy or the objective and give students some sort of responsibility. It pulls everyone into the lesson, and it also creates that urgency so that they want to stay more engaged. In this particular lesson, students are going to be math detectives, and they're going to solve for a missing number. This is going to be working with the properties of addition and subtraction. So these are going to be missing addends. There's going to be a part whole mat where one of the addends is missing. So what the teacher's going to do next is she's going to model her math thinking out loud. So she's going to take a work mat from the day's lesson and model her thinking out loud to kind of train her students on how mathematicians think. Once she's modeled the math thinking and the strategy, she's then going to pull a student up to retell the math thinking in their own words. This is helpful because it's great for our students to hear our perspective, and we want them to hear that correct mathematical thinking, but we also know how valuable it is for students to hear their peers explain something in their own words. And then beyond that, we're going to ask if anyone has another way to solve, because sometimes we can really find out how our students are thinking and what strategies they're using if we just ask. Moving on from there, we're all going to get more hands-on with the concept. Students are now going to do the actual manipulating of the objects to work through the problem, and then we're going to check their answers. Now we want everyone involved, so we're going to take out those magnifying glasses and everyone is going to be a part of the lesson. So the teacher's going to hold up the work mat and she's going to get the manipulatives out and model it. Then students will write their answers right on the magnifying glasses, so that everyone has to share their math thinking. Next, they will turn and justify their math thinking with an elbow buddy. And then at that point, our awesome lesson needs to stop. So I'm going to stop there and I'm going to collect my materials and we're going to turn and face the teacher. Now, what we're going to do here is introduce anything new that's happening in our small group rotations. If you're rotating every single day and each day you have new activities coming out, then you're going to need to save just a little time to share those new activities with your kids before you go out and try them. Now, at first this takes a little longer, but once you have trained your students on these procedures, you can get it right down to 5 minutes. So let me show you how you do that. The first thing that is always changing in my classroom and Mrs. Grant's room here is math journal. There's a daily math journal that students will go to in their rotations. So to make life easier and to make this go quickly, you're going to keep an example math journal so that students can see where to glue things if there's cutting and gluing, and also how you're going to solve. So rather than Mrs. Grant explaining how to cut, students are already seeing it right in the journal. Next, she's going to model what to do. So just like we were using our math strategy to figure out missing numbers, now we're applying it in our math journal. So she models how to fill in the missing number on the 10 frame to figure out what this number is here. Next, she's going to introduce a new math tub that students will be rotating to. So we are in October here, so she's introducing Pumpkin Patch Addition. Now, when she introduces this, the first thing she's going to do is she's going to pull the pieces out and say, boys and girls, tell me what you see. Tell me what you notice. So she's going to give the students clues because eventually she wants them to be able to pull materials out and to know what is expected from those materials. When it's time to get into our small group rotations, we always want to start by making it a priority to review our guided math expectations. So the choices in this particular lesson: and small group with the teacher, so that's your teacher table, a hands-on math center, math journal, so students will take a concept and apply it in their math journal, math through technology, and then independent practice. Now, another bonus of doing it this way is that your noise level is going to be less. When you have quiet centers such as these center choices, it's going to bring that noise level down and it helps to control it, especially if you have quite a boisterous class. All right, so teacher's going to take a minute to share the day's plan for rotating. If you're on a rotation system that stays the same pretty much daily, then it's just reminding students of where they left off, where they're picking up, that sort of thing. And so she's just going to bring that up, and it might be like a wall chart, or it could be this one where it's being projected and set to a timer. It's really completely teacher choice. So now we're going to go through what each of the rotations looks like. Really, the ultimate goal in these rotations is to allow the teacher to differentiate. But while that's happening, we're going to want all of our students actively engaging in 3 ways: with the materials, with their peers, and then with the teacher. So here in small group, these students are taking the day's objective. It's the same objective for all the groups, but you're just going to change out your range of numbers to increase difficulty or to remediate in this particular lesson. All right, so the teacher is going to model the activity, and then the students are going to use manipulatives to problem solve right there in front of the teacher. What this does is it allows the teacher to detect and correct, to give immediate feedback, to listen to the students' math talk and expand on it. And it's going to help you to expand and elevate the level of learning that they're at. So if students are struggling with one particular area but strong in another, then you know where you really can zero in and help them. The best thing that I love about small group instruction is just your daily formative assessment that you're doing. You will know so much about your students, not from a test, not from some worksheet, but just from that face-to-face time. And when it comes to report cards, when it comes to talking to their parents, you're going to have stories, you're going to have moments, you're going to have discoveries, you're going to know those ins and outs of their thinking because you've spent the time. And it's 10 minutes a day, but man, does it make a big difference. Now, going back to the time that you spend in your rotations, it really depends on the number of students you have, the age level of the student, the stamina, the types of activities that the other students are doing. There's a lot of factors that tie in. So what happens naturally, though, is your class will kind of show you how much time to spend. If you had an ultimate goal of spending 15 minutes on a rotation, but you notice that after about the 12th minute, things start breaking down, behaviors start coming out, and restlessness starts to take over your classroom, then you know that time is just too long. I have found that 10 minutes seems to be the perfect amount for me. That's because what I'm doing is I'm getting that overall sense. Now, let's say that I've done a few problems with my small group, but I didn't quite do all of them. That's okay. I'm going to see them tomorrow, and I'm going to go ahead and let them go and move on. Like, it's not going to hold me back. I want to keep it short and sweet. I want my students always wanting more. The best is when the timer goes off and you hear, "Aww," because they're so excited and they want to stay and continue working. So you say, "Don't worry, you'll get to keep on going tomorrow." So just go ahead and move it along, or adjust your time. If you really do feel like it's not enough time, then go ahead and adjust your time and maybe try 12 minutes or 15 or whatever the right number is for you. The older the student, the more time is usually needed because the depth and complexity of the activities continues to grow. All right, so while you're teaching at that small group table, this is what the other students may be doing. So we have math through technology. So this could be a computer program. It could be something on the iPads or any kind of handheld device, but it's going to be a math concept taught or reviewed on a technical device. Another station is our independent practice. This is a great one for taking a grade and also to see how your students are doing with different concepts independently. Then we also have our math journal, which I kind of briefly explained. Every once in a while, run it on brightly colored paper to really give it that excitement and pop. Also keep a tidy tub at your table or some sort of little trash bucket so students aren't having to get up to throw away trash but are able to stay and keep working without being a distraction to others. You can differentiate. So for example, both of these students are working on missing add-ins, which was our concept, but one of them is working here at the first grade level and one of them is working at a higher enrichment level. It's the same activity, but it's a different format. I mean, the same objective, but a different format. This group is our hands-on math tub group, and they are solving sums and sorting them under these titles. Now, this particular group is strong and able to use the abstract thinking, but they can also, you can always have those manipulatives out for students that need that support. And you can also always have 10 frames and 20 frames. So if you have a group that's more needy and you're worried about them being out there without you, when you give them those support materials, you kind of level the playing field for them. This particular group doesn't need that, but the next might. So just having them there is going to be a huge help to your students. All right, so now let's talk about when time is up and we need to quickly get that transition done to get back to the rug for our reflection. We want to teach our students how to clean up. Just set a 1-minute timer because that is our ultimate goal with this transition. We may or may not make it, but that is our goal every day. So we give 1 minute and we learn the procedures of cleaning up and putting away. This is going to build that autonomous classroom that we all want so much for ourselves and for our students. All right, and our final component of guided math is the reflection piece. Now, it's an easy thing to kind of leave off and forget, but man, it is so important. So lifelong learners naturally reflect. As we drive home from teaching, we naturally reflect on our day. We think about the things that went really well. We think about the things that did not go very well. And this is something that we want for our students to do. So what I have found, especially with the younger children, is to use a concrete object or to help our students to make that connection. So Mrs. Grant here is holding a rubber band and she has posted the question, what happened today in math that stretched your brain? So students are going to make a connection with the rubber band and think about something that was challenging or that stretched their thinking. Now, at first, reflection can be difficult for students to really know, so it's really good to catch your students in small group and say, wow, I just saw you make that connection. Do you think you can share that during reflection? And if you can kind of pinpoint those moments for them when they are making some sort of learning leap and how you want them to explain it, then once a few students have done this, then everyone starts to really understand how to reflect and to want to share a connection. Students will make connections through the math lesson as they're learning. That's our ultimate goal there. And we're only going to spend 5 minutes. Again, with all of these things, when you're training, the training is going to take longer. But once your students have become routine with all of these different components, you can really shave those minutes down. Now that we've watched our guided math lesson, I just want to share where the materials come from if you're looking to beef up your guided math block. I have lessons for K1 and 2. They contain the warm-up, the Power Packed mini lesson, any materials you might need or cards or games. They also have the small group lesson plan with any materials that you might need, any games or activity cards. This is just an example of a kindergarten guided math lesson. It's got the little booklet for teaching the concept whole group, a fun activity to do with your small group, and then an independent practice page to follow up. I also have math centers for kinder, first and second, math journals for the year, and activity and skill pages for the year. So if those are some things that you're looking for, I'm going to go ahead and provide those links in the video description. And you can also find a majority of them in this free How to Launch Guided Math Guide. I wrote this summer to help kind of launch you as the new year started, but honestly, my first year trying guided math, I started more towards the end of the school year because I wanted to kind of experiment. So never feel like you have to start something on the first day of school. You start whenever your students are ready, whenever you feel ready, and hopefully this guide will help you to get that going in your classroom. Inside this free guide, and I'll put the link in the product description, you will find all sorts of other resources that I use to teach guided math. Let's stay connected. I hope you'll find me online. I have a fabulous Facebook group. We love to talk about guided math. We love to share pictures. We love to talk about all sorts of things that aren't about guided math. But if you want to join that, you can search on Facebook for Tunstall's Teaching Tidbits Facebook group and request to join, and I'll add you. All right, well, thank you so much for spending this time with me in this guided math video. I hope that it was helpful.